welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on Helix Atrium CMDB auditing. Joining me today is Jean-Christophe, our lead Premier Architect. He's going to go through some slides. We've also got a demo. But before we get started into the presentation, just a couple of reminders. You can use the Q&A section of Zoom and ask your questions in there. JC and his team will be able to answer those during the presentation, and then we should have roughly 15 to 20 minutes at the end, if all goes to plan, to be able to answer some of your questions live. So until that time, you will be remaining on mute, so do use the Q&A section. Okay, so JC, I'm going to help control the slides. So if we go on to the agenda, if you just want to get that started.
Okay. So hello everyone. We'll be taking a look at the importance of auditing and why we should do it. We'll look at the scope for auditing and what should be considered before configuring auditing. We'll discuss auditing in Helix CMDB, then go through a short demo on how to configure auditing, and finally go through some recommendations before we open up for Q&As. As we know, a well-maintained CMDB provides an accurate single source of truth for IT asset information. The trustworthiness of the CMDB framework underpins the IT service management. We know data from any sources that is inaccurate will not be trusted by its consumers, and this is especially true with ITSM. Auditing serves an important function in determining who or what has made changes to CIs, their relationships, providing a trail of accountability that helps to maintain the accuracy of the CMDB. It will give auditors and ITSM admins visibility into the current state of IT assets, as well as their historical states. Sorry, Sam, I think we're one step ahead on your slides. When we decide to configure audit in CMDB, care should be taken when designing an audit policy. Configuring blanket audit for all classes and attributes can lead to system performance degradation. But not configuring audit for the right classes and/or attributes, on the other hand, risks the risk of missing important changes to business critical CIs and impacts the accuracy of the CMDB. This is why having a well-considered audit policy is important. When designing an audit policy, we need to consider things like regulatory or business requirements. Also consider if a class or attribute absolutely needs to be audited and whether it meets the business critical criteria. We also must consider what audit methods are available to use. By default, audit is not enabled in Helix CMDB, so it needs to be configured. For classes, there are two types of audit options available: copy audit and log audit. The log audit option is the most simplest form of audit, where a single audit form is created. This audit form can be used for multiple classes. The default audit form is called CMDB:default audit log. For copy auditing, each AR system form belonging to that class and its subclasses are duplicated to create the audit forms. These forms are suffixed with the :audit tag. Because these forms are created, we can do more advanced searches like we would do on a normal AR server form. This is also true when we're using reporting tools like BMC Helix dashboards. For attributes, there are four options for auditing: none, audit, copy, and then there is audit and copy. None is the default and does not audit anything, as you'd expect. The audit option will trigger an audit when there is a change to the attribute. If the copy option is used, an audit will not be triggered when there is a change on that attribute itself. Rather, it will be copied along to the audit form when another attribute has triggered an audit. This might be used when the attribute itself does not warrant an audit, but it would be useful to have a current state of that attribute copied to the audit form along with the other attributes that are being audited. The audit and copy method is a mixture of both the audit and copy options, which means whether there is a change in the attribute or not, its value will be copied to the audit form regardless. So with the myriads of options for auditing, it's sometimes difficult to know when an audit will be triggered. So let's look at some examples. But first off, if an attribute is not configured to audit, but its classes or its parent class is set to audit, any newly created CIs or deleted CIs will trigger an audit. However, it will not trigger any audits or modify, as this is set at the attribute level. So taking a look at the examples in the table, in operation order 1, the attribute assigned to is set to audit, and the attribute serial number, which is set to audit and copy, these are the only two attributes that can trigger an audit. However, when a CI is first created, an audit is triggered regardless of the fact that they are both null in this example. This is because the create operation itself, in this instance, is considered a change. When the instance is modified in operation 2, the value of assigned to changes, so that triggers an audit and writes that attribute to the audit form. Account ID and serial number are also written. In operation order 3, the account ID attribute changes, but no audit is triggered because its audit is set to copy. In operation order 4, serial number change value and an audit is triggered. This time, assigned to is not written because its value did not change. Account ID is written to the audit form because its audit is set to copy. And when the instance is deleted in operation order 5, a final audit is triggered. Let's take a look at how to configure audit in Helix CMDB in a short demo. To configure auditing for Helix CMDB, we'll use a class manager. Let's first configure log auditing. Once we know what class we want to audit, we'll search for it in the Class Manager Explorer. In this case, I'm going to use the database class. We'll go to Edit. In the Audit Information section, we'll go to Audit Type, and here we're going to select Log. As you can see, the default audit form has already been filled out. The default is CMDB:default audit log. But of course, you can have any name here you like. Since I only want to audit the CIs in the bmc.asset class, I'll need to give a qualification. In the qualification editor, I'll allow manual edit, go to my attributes list and select the dataset ID. Hit OK. And back in the Class Manager class editor, we're done, so we hit save. And here we see the message, the server accepted your changes. The changes may take a while to reflect. Okay, so once sufficient time has passed, we can do a search for our CMDB log audit form. So at this point, the only things that will trigger an audit are the creation of a new CI or the deletion of a pre-existing CI in a database class. The reason for that is we've only configured auditing at the class level and not at the attribute level. So let's do that. Now, the only reason I chose the BMC database class in this example is to bring up an important caveat. If you already have log audit enabled for a class, you cannot enable copy audit for any of its subclasses. Likewise, if you already have copy audit enabled for a class, you cannot enable log auditing for any of its superclasses. So that is to say, if I wanted to set copy auditing on to any of the subclasses of the class that I've just configured for log auditing, I wouldn't be able to. And in this example, under the CDM, the database class doesn't have any child classes below it. So let's continue to set attribute auditing. Out of the box, the database class's attributes come from base element. But in this example, we've created a custom attribute called database key. If we edit that attribute, and in our audit option, we'll do audit and save. So now let's go and look for a database CI to modify.
For expediency, we're going to use the backend CMDB form. So on the BMC database form, I'm only interested in all the CIs that's in the asset datasets. If we take the first one here and look for our custom attribute, which is database key, we'll make a change to that before saving it. This is our CI name. And this modification should have triggered an audit in the audit log. So let's go and have a look at the audit log. Here in the audit log, if we just do an unqualified search, here's our entry that has been audited. We can see here our database key field has changed. If we go back and pick out the name of this CI, go back to the CMDB portal and we'll search for the CI name here. I believe it's going to be the first one here. If we go to show CI details, here we can have a look at the auditing as well from the CMDB portal. And this gets its information from the CMDB audit form. As you can see here, we've had an update, and the changed attribute is a database key. Now let's move on to configure copy auditing. Let's go back to the class manager. And in this example, I'm going to use the computer system class. Edit. And in our audit information section, we'll select copy. Here we don't have a default log audit form, but as we know, for copy auditing, each AR system form belonging to that class is duplicated. These forms are suffixed with a :audit tag in its name. Again, we only want to see the CIs in the BMC asset dataset. So we'll create our qualification and save. And we get a message saying the class is updated successfully. Now, because these forms needs to be duplicated, it could take considerably longer for the audit forms to be created. This can take up to 20 minutes depending on where in the CDM hierarchy the class is. Once sufficient time has passed, you can check for the creation of the audit forms. Here, 3 audit forms are created. One for base element, which is a superclass of the computer system class, and a further 2 for the computer system class for both the join and regular forms. Like we saw earlier with log auditing, the only thing that will trigger an audit will be the creation or the deletion of a CI. Any modification to the CIs in the class won't be audited until we configure attribute auditing. Back on the class manager, we want to set the name attribute to audit. Because the name attribute comes from the base element class, we're going to have to open up the base element class and select the name attribute from there. Then we edit, and in our audit options, we're going to select audit and copy. Hit save, and the server has accepted the request. So now let's find a CI to modify. On the backend computer system form, we'll search for one of our CIs in the asset dataset, and we'll modify the name. If we take a look at our audit form, we've triggered an audit. Going back to the CMDB portal, we'll search for this CI. In show CI details, CI audit, we can see an update has been made on the name attribute of that CI. Now going back to our backend audit forms, you can see the CIs that has been modified is effectively copied into the audit form. So that means we can do more advanced searches for any modified CIs in a reporting tool. Let's now look at relationship auditing. Configuring relationship auditing is pretty much the same as before. Here, I've already set the computer system class to copy, the account ID, name, and markers deleted fields to copy and audit. Let's continue to configure relationship auditing. First and foremost, pretty much all the attributes in the relationship classes come from the base relationship class. So this is the class we're going to set auditing for. My auditing type, I'm going to choose log instead of copy. So all of the auditing on the base relationship class goes into the default audit log. Set my qualifications. bmc.assets and save that. Again, it's probably wise just to wait a little while if the log audit form hasn't already been created. I'm also going to set the markers deleted attribute on the base relationship form to audit. Okay, so that's done. Now we'll find a computer system CI that has a few relationships. I'll take this one here, show an explorer. That has a few. Get the name. Go to my computer system form and search for that CI. Have a look at the CI's relationships. Yeah, we've got a few there. Now we're going to set this markers deleted attribute to yes. Save. So that will trigger an audit. Let's take a look at the computer system audit form. Let's do a new search here. And we get an audit entry. Because we've also set auditing on for the name attribute, that's also brought over. There's nothing in the account ID because that CI didn't have anything in the account ID. And we'll change that in a bit. When we use copy audit for classes, it's very easy to get confused at which form you're looking at. The quickest way to know if you're on the audit form is to have a look at the last modified by. In the default audit log, where we've set the audit for base relationship, we can do a search here and find all the relationships that have been deleted. Just to note, when you set a CI to mark as deleted, its relationship also gets deleted. Not marked as deleted, but actually removed from the CMDB. So even if you bring this CI back from mark as deleted yes to no, its relationships won't be recreated. I'm going to give this CI an account ID now, and also set the markers deleted back to no. Take a look back on our computer system audit form. Do a refresh. We get a new entry, and along with the name and the account ID, in the default audit log, there should be no new entries. because the relationships of that CI has not been recreated. Go back to our portal, let's refresh this. Search for the computer system again. It has no relationships. We can view the CI audit. And here's our updates to that CI. You won't see any relationship audit information. It will only be available in the backend audit log form. Now, these relationship audit entries was triggered by the CI going into mark as deleted state and not the deletion of the relationship or the relationships themselves. If we were to directly delete a relationship, we should only get one single entry in a default audit log. Let's do this now quickly. We'll just pick a relationship at random in the asset data set. Now that would have triggered an audit on the default audit log because we've removed it out of the CMDB. We'll also take another relationship instance and we'll set it to mark as deleted. Let's go back to our audit log form and we should have two more entries, which are these two last entries here. After we've configured auditing, only CIs that have changed post-configuration will trigger an audit. But there may be instances where we want to know the current state of a CI and use that as a baseline going forward. One way we can do this is to force an audit by changing an attribute that is set for auditing. We can use something like Atrium Integrator or Jitterbit for SaaS customers to do this. Let's now take a look at this using Atrium Integrator. I've created a custom attribute called forAuditBaseline under the base element form. It's a very simple attribute with a data type character and entry mode optional. And that's all we need to do to create this attribute. On the auditing option, I'm going to select audit and copy and save. We'll also create another custom attribute, which we'll circle back to later. Attribute, again a character field called custom attribute for audit demo. We'll set the audit option to audit and copy. Save. Just to recap, we've created two new custom attributes for audit baseline, which will trigger the audit, and another custom attribute, which will put some data in. Let's go to our base element form, search for the asset data set, class ID computer system. And we've got 62 computer systems here. I'm going to take one as an example and fill out the custom attribute for audit demo field. Just save that one off. And here is our forAuditBaseline attribute, which is currently empty. Let's move to Spoon. I've created a transformation here with 3 steps: a CMDB input, a constant, and a CMDB output. If we take a look at the steps, in the CMDB input, we're looking for the forAuditBaseline attribute where that is equal to null. And our data set is BMC assets, and our class ID in this case is going to be BMC computer system. We add a constant, which is called audit value, which is a string, and that is set to yes. And finally, our CMDB output step, where we're setting for audit baseline attribute to our stream field audit value, and that's an update. Let's continue to run this transformation now. And of course, you can put this in a job and run it from the CMDB portal. Okay, that's done. We've written 62 instances. As this is not a production environment, it's quite quick. When and if you do this on a production system, make sure you do it out of hours,
as the total number of CIs potentially could be into the millions.
Moving back into the mid-tier, we just do a refresh. Go to our custom attribute tab, and we can see all these computer system, 62 in this environment. For audit, baseline is set to yes. And on the audit form, we have many more entries, some of which was created earlier. And let's look for the computer system that we made this change to prior. And we've got two entries here in the audit form. One which was made earlier, but our current one should be this one here. We go to our custom attribute, and here only our for audit baseline attribute is available. We were also expecting the custom attribute audit for demo field to show as well. The reason for this is when the audit form was created, the custom attribute audit for demo attribute didn't exist. So it's hidden from view. What we'll need to do is go to the developer console and put that field back in view. I'd already done this previously for the audit baseline attributes. So that's something to bear in mind. If you create a new custom attribute, but you'd already created the audit forms, you will need to put these attributes back in view. So at this point, we've got our baseline audit for all our CIs. Again, just bear in mind, if doing this on a production system, you obviously have to test it on dev and QA first. But when you're doing it on production system and you've potentially got millions of CIs, do this out of hours. You can then choose to delete the for audit baseline attribute or just hide it. This pretty much covers the configuring of auditing in Helix CMDB. Thanks for watching.
So as we just saw in the demo, the configuring of auditing for Helix CMDB is not too difficult. There are some things we do have to bear in mind when doing audit configuration. When auditing classes, enable auditing for up to 5 classes as high up on the CDM as possible. For each of those, use only up to 5 attributes to audit. You don't need to or shouldn't audit system attributes like last modified by or modified date, as Remedy AR system keeps a history of these already. It's difficult at first to decide on which classes and attributes to audit and keep within these ranges. So there is a temptation to audit everything. And as mentioned earlier, this has some overheads, especially when using copy auditing on classes, where each form is duplicated and each CI that is being audited at the attribute level is copied into those multiple audit forms. As with auditing for classes, rather than auditing at a lower level in your service model, audit at the highest level possible. Don't forget to make use of qualifications and be as specific as possible. This again will help with performance. Use a qualification on the dataset ID attribute to restrict auditing to your production datasets. When auditing on BMC relationship, use the markers deleted attribute with the audit option. You can then use the source and destination instance IDs with the copy option which will give you the history of the parent and child CI in case those are modified or deleted. And definitely make use of the docs pages for further information on Helix CMDB auditing. There's also a troubleshooting section, just in case things don't work as expected. Thank you for your time today. We're going to open up for live Q&A, so I'll pass it back over to Sam.
Thank you, JC, and hopefully everyone on here has found that useful today. The recording will be shared out with you in the next 24 hours or so. I'm just going to start unmuting everyone. I can see we've also got a couple of questions in the Q&A. So if we start with that, Nabil had a question. Can we archive CI rather than have them deleted? What is the difference between markers delete, purge, and archive of CI? I don't know if that's a question you could take, JC, and I'll just see if I can unmute Nabil, because there's quite a few questions from Nabil. Hello, Nabil, can you hear us? Hello.
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Hello.
Hello,
Do you
Nabil.
want, yes, so you've got a couple of questions in there. We'll start with your first one. So JC, I just read that one out. I don't know if you
Okay.
can answer that first one.
Yep, you can certainly archive CIs as opposed to deleting them. That's no issue. What's the difference between markers deleted, delete, purge, and archive of a CI? So when you markers delete a CI, it doesn't actually get removed from the CMDB. What does happen is it becomes unavailable to a CMDB consumer like ITSM. So you can easily bring it back out of markers deleted, and that will be available to ITSM again. But once you delete or purge out of the CMDB, it's gone. So there's no way to recover it unless you've got a backup of your database or something like that. The purge, again, will remove the CI out of the CMDB, and purge will only occur on any CIs that has been marked as deleted, and that's normally through reconciliation. The archiving of a CI, it's retrievable. So essentially archiving, you're just moving the CI or its data or any data into another portion of the database. Does that answer your question there, Nabil?
Yes, thank you.
Nabil, you had a couple of other questions. They're kind of around the same topic. Do you want to go on to those next ones? Because they're also into the Q&A as well.
Yep. So in regard of the duplicate CI and orphan CI, what's the definition of it based on the console dashboard that we have for the CMDB?
Are you talking about the KPIs at the front end?
Yes.
Yeah. So duplicate CIs, I see, this is out of experience, by the way, it's not always the case. We get duplicate CIs when there's an issue with some of the reconciliation rules. Either they've been modified or deleted even. So when something like discovery syncs to CMDB, it doesn't know if that CI exists or not, so it recreates it. So it's worth always, if your KPI is showing you that you've got duplicate CIs, then have a look at your reconciliation rules first. And it'll be the same things with orphan CIs as well. Normally, it's down to your recon rule. There is a very good knowledge article on the BMC docs pages on how to deal with duplicates and orphan CIs. And I think that can be sent along, or just take a look at the docs pages there, Nabil. It should be there.
Okay.
We'll get that link as well, JC. We'll share it with the Q&A.
Yeah.
I'll get that from you. And then did you want to ask your other questions, Nabil?
Yes. So I think what is the best practice for resolving duplicate and orphan CI? This will be from the docu that you will be sending.
Yeah, it should be there as well. We can get that in.
Okay. In regard of handling delete CI and purging and all of that, the issue that we are looking at is that if we do have a change or an incident, the CI will be lost, the asset will be lost. So the best approach or best practice is to archive a CI rather than delete or purge?
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, archiving the CI is retrievable. Deleting or purging it won't be. So effectively, you're just removing it out of the backend database. So yeah, I'd always opt to archive. Obviously, that all depends. It depends on your archiving policy. Every company has their own different archiving policies.
Is there a docker for archiving
Sorry, can you
as
repeat
well?
that?
Do you have a documentation for archiving? Best
Yeah, we
practice?
certainly do. We can certainly send that over to you as well.
Okay. And how Audit can help with prevent duplicates and orphan CI?
It doesn't, in all respects. So the auditing will just, what audit does is shows you who or what has done a specific action on any CI. It won't stop preventing duplicates or orphan CIs. Like I said earlier, the most likely cause of duplicates and orphan CIs are the reconciliation identify rules. So,
And even if you fix the reconciliation jobs, you will end up still having the duplicate in the CMDB.
in the CMDB, yeah. So obviously the main aim is not to get the duplicates in the first place, but if you do have them, there are many methods to try and remove duplicates and orphans. Normally, orphans might resolve themselves. Let's say, for example, Discovery has discovered a bunch of CIs on a Monday. On a Tuesday, it can't see that CI. So in the next sync run, it will mark those CIs deleted, and those CIs may be related to other CIs. So the first bunch of CIs now become orphaned. But the week after next, Discovery actually rediscovers these CIs again and brings them out of deleted, mark as deleted, if you like. So if you see orphan CIs, I would wait for a couple of Discovery syncs to occur before deciding whether they are really orphans or not. I'm not sure if you are on-prem or on SaaS.
On-prem.
On-prem, yeah. So you can have a look at something called the CMDB diag. It's a tool. It's a command line based tool which will help you to try and get rid of duplicates and orphans. Have you ever used a CMDB diag before?
No.
Okay, have a look at it, but there's a caveat. It's a dangerous tool to use. So if you're going to use that, make sure you got a database backup.
Okay.
Because it
do
will.
you have a documentation for that?
Of course, yes. It's in the CMDB main CMDB documentation page. I'm assuming you're going to be on version maybe 2002 perhaps, or are you on containerized?
I need to check.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, both versions, the docs are available for that.
Okay.
I think what we'll do, JC, we'll grab all these links and I'll put them actually within the Q&A blog post that we're putting, and then obviously, Nabil, you'll see those links as well, and it might be also useful for others. It will take them to the direct pages.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Is there a Gen AI or like in order to handle the duplicates and a healthy CMDB, like automatically do that? Like
There isn't at the moment. How do you mean? Just to remove them if it finds duplicates? To do it automatically?
like instead of doing all this manually and looking at the duplicates and all the hustle.
No, I get what you're saying. And that possibly go into, well, I don't know. It will be up to the product managers to see whether that's coming in a future release or not. I haven't heard anything, but I know there's a few major changes coming in CMDB in the next year or so. So yeah, keep an eye out, Nabil. But at the moment, to your question, there isn't an automatic way to do that.
I know
Okay.
for Gen AI, because I've been in contact with the product manager, they're focusing very much on the agent stuff, and I haven't seen anything either, JC. But we are going to be running some webinars next year when all the features for all of the agents, I think there's 9 different agents that are going to be released, because it's
Yeah.
not part of the GPT series at the moment. Okay.
Thank you.
Nabil, that pleasure. I think that's all your questions. Are you okay for me to go to the next ones in the Q&A?
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Chris, you're up next. Chris Foster, I can see you've got a question in there, and I'm sure everyone's fed up with hearing my voice. I don't know if you want to come off mute and talk to the team live.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was just a question when I spotted the information around when you mark a CI as deleted, the relationships get removed. I assume the corresponding CIs are still active. If that original CI has been accidentally marked as deleted, is it advisable or kind of straightforward to use the audit logs to ascertain, those original relationships to recreate them? Or is there any sort of automation would put them back in after a while, via if it's discovered via, BMC discovery or something along those lines?
Yeah, so going back to the first part of that question, if a CI goes into mark as deleted, only its relationships will get deleted. The other
Yeah.
CIs that it's related to do not get marked as deleted. If you accidentally mark a CI as mark as deleted, if it's, like you said, if it's coming in from discovery on its next sync will bring that CI out of mark as deleted again and recreate the relationships. So if it's an accident, I would just leave it there for the moment, and let discovery redo the sync, if you like, and then build those relationships back up.
Perfect. Yeah, and if it happened to be a kind of manually created CI with manual relationships created, would it be advisable to kind of look at those audit logs to try and recreate relationships, or are you kind of just doing manual work again to recreate?
Yeah. I mean, look at the audit logs for sure, because that's what they're there for, to see who or what made the changes, but it will also give you information on what those changes were and how they were related, all of that information. But you will have to recreate them manually.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think it's probably just a case of kind of getting the right kind of query or search, in the back end really to find the right information and kind of just recreate them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why using the copy audit is more useful, in my opinion, than log audits.
Yes, because you will get those other attributes then that you kind of have marked for auditing then as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Thanks.
Yes, Chris.
Thank you for your question. We have another question from Jesus. I don't know if you're still on. Just see. Yes. If you want to unmute yourself, your question was around archiving CIs. I don't know if it was covered off with the previous questions, but I'll give you the opportunity to talk. Can you hear us? I don't know if you've joined via the client. Sometimes I know we have audio issues, but I can't see anything moving next to your name. JC, the question that came was, will archiving CIs be handled by the new data set and a reconciliation job?
I'm not quite sure what it means by that question, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, archiving of the CI is essentially bringing all the CIs into another portion of the AR database, if you like. Once they're archived, they're pretty much gone out of the CMDB. If you need them back in, you can put them in a new data set, but Really, they should be put back in the old data set. It all depends on the archiving policy at every company, to be honest. I don't know if Jesu wants to elaborate on his question. Maybe I'm misreading the question, but yeah.
I don't know if you can hear us. He did raise his hand and I've unmuted him again, but there's no speech next to him. So maybe you want to reply back into the Q&A just to give us a bit more detail and we can take that offline. I'm just conscious of time and we've got a hand raised and another question. And maybe, Jesus, if you want to rejoin and ask your question live, whatever's easiest for you, we'll come back to that one. So Charles, there was a question from you. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Charles.
Hello.
Um, sorry, I've seen your question and it pretty much works the same way in terms of relationship. How does it affect the purging of related CIs? Can you elaborate on that portion a bit more to your question?
Yes, and I wonder that if I put the weak relationship there, and if I delete the relationship, sometimes I have a minor inventory item there, so I want to remove it also from the relationship, right? And put also related CI as delete, mark as delete.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Because when you set a parent CI, which is with a weak relationship to a child CI, the child CI will also be set as mark as delete yes. So if you ran a purge, then when the reconciliation job runs, both the relationship and the child CI as well as the parent will be deleted or purged.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So okay. All right. So if I want to keep it, I cannot put as a weekend, right?
Yeah, so for any weak CIs, they are considered as orphans. So if they don't have a parent, they can't exist without a parent. Because, for example, if you've got a computer system and a disk drive, the disk drive is not accessible when the computer's switched off. So they are part of an object together. So the child CI, for example, the disk drive can't exist on its own, and that's why it needs to be removed.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your question. So that's all the questions
Charlotte?
we've got at the moment. So Mamadou, do you want to come off mute? I can see you've raised your hand. If you're still there. Okay, I don't know if you can hear us, Mamadou, or you're still at the phone, but you have raised your hand. If you've still got a question, if you want to raise it again, I've removed the hand. So Jesus had another question, JC, is there an out-of-the-box archive method that will copy the CIs, or do we have to create an archive data set and set up a reconciliation job to move the BMC.asset to it?
You will have to set it up. If we were going to be doing an out-of-the-box one, it will be very difficult to meet everyone's needs because different companies will have different archiving policies. I mean, if you're government organizations or maybe financial, there's a term limit on where of when you can archive, but it's not going to be the case for every other company. So this is why there isn't an out-of-the-box one, but you will have to create that policy yourselves, maybe speak to your stakeholders first, and then decide what your archiving policy is. Does that answer your question there, Bill?
Yes. This one was Jesus's. I think
sorry,
it was the addition. The addition to your last one. Hopefully it does. If you want to just reply back, and we'll formulate that response together. And then Nabil's it's not really a question, it's more about having a session focusing on cleaning up the CMDB from duplicates and orphans. And I'm not sure whether it would take a whole session, or maybe it's a conversation that we'll take away as a team. It might be that I can have someone create a video, and I'll discuss that with Charlotte and JC and the team. I don't know if JC, you've got any thoughts on that about cleaning up the CMDB from duplicate and orphan?
Yeah, if we're going to be doing a session, we'll be going through what is already in the docs pages. There may be some additional questions regarding what's there. We can put those comments on the doc pages, but like I said, we can possibly talk about a session doing that as well, and focusing on cleaning up the CMDB for orphans and duplicates.